life in the backcountry. So take a look at frontier life. It says life was hard and often lonely for earlier settlers in the backcountry. Family members had to work together to provide all the items that they might need. So they would have to chop wood, farm, clear the land, make candles, churn butter, use the fire for cooking and warmth, create a loft, and make sure that there's enough mud between the logs in order to insulate their house so they don't freeze. So here we go. Life in the backcountry. Most of the people who settled in the backcountry lived simply, right? They lived simply. Their homes were log huts with chimneys made of sticks and mud. Most homes had one room with a dirt floor and no windows. Light came through the open door in the daytime and from the fireplace at night. Families burned wood in the fireplace to cook their food and to keep warm. At night, the adults in the family spread their blankets over piles of dry leaves on the floor. The children slept in the loft, which sounds fun, but it's actually just the part of the house between the ceiling and the roof. In order to get up to the loft, they would climb a ladder, which was often just wooden pegs driven into the wall. A settler named Oliver Johnson remembered sleeping in a loft when he was growing up on the frontier. He wrote, "If you slept in the loft, you pulled your head under the covers during a storm. When you got up in the morning, you would shake the snow off the covers, grab your shirt and breeches, and hop down the ladder to the fireplace where it was good and warm." So this is telling me that the loft was extremely cold. People on the frontier worked hard to get food, hunting in the forest, and farming in the clearings. They farmed in the Indian way. They planted corn, beans, and squash all on the same mound of soil. The corn stalks provided a stake for the beans to climb. The squash vines spread out in the ground between the mounds. As families had done in early New England, frontier families made almost everything they needed. They churned their own butter, dyed their own cloth, and made their own soap and candles. Those who could not do things for themselves, a frontier minister observed in 1711, would have a bad time of it, for help is not to be had at any rate. Life on the frontier was full of dangers. Families had to protect themselves not only from wild animals, but also from possible attacks from Indians or other settlers. Despite these dangers, people still moved further and further west. By the mid-1700s, the English settlers had crossed the Appalachian Mountains into the Ohio Valley. The land that they moved into was also claimed by France. Uh-oh. I don't know about you, but I think there might be a problem if they're already on land that is claimed for France. So let's take a look at life in the backcountry. Most people who settled in the backcountry lived simply. Remember, that's what they said. Simply, I think, is another way or a nice way of saying that they didn't have a lot. They didn't really have much, so they had to deal with what they got. Most homes had one room with a dirt floor and no windows. Children often slept in the loft. Now we'd like the loft because it's nice and cozy, but back then it was just the part of the house between the ceiling and the roof. What are some of the things that frontier families did in order to survive? Well, they had to, let's look at it. Right, they had to hunt, they had to farm, they had to churn their own butter, dye their own cloth, make their own soap and candles. So they had to hunt, farm, they had to churn their own butter, dye their own clothes. They had to make their own soap. Etc. Hunt, farm, and clearings. Life on the frontier was full of danger. Families had to protect themselves from attacks from animals, Indians, and other settlers. By the mid-1700s, English settlers had moved into the Ohio Valley, that's where we live, onto land that was already claimed by France. Okay, so let's wrap it up so we understand what's happening here. Why did settlers move west, right? They wanted land. They needed farms, right? They just wanted to expand. What do you think will happen as more and more English settlers move into land claimed by France, and why? So this is the question, right? So the question is France going to really just give up and hand it over, or is there going to be some sort of altercation? Now, I think there will be a fight. Right? Because France and Britain hate each other. And I don't think France will just easily give up. So even if France isn't using that land or just doesn't care, I don't think they're going to give it to England without a fight. All right, let's check and see what we did today. Young Ben Franklin, episode 4. Make sure you listen to the first 10 minutes. First 10 minutes. We read the pages. We completed the study guide, and we wrapped it up. So we're looking forward, obviously, as they're moving west, what's going to happen. All right. Feels pretty easy today, so I hope that you took the time to really read it, to really think about life on the frontier, and I will see you soon.